Hey, we are live. Whoa, what is up, fight nerds and dirty gamblers? Just one second. I got to mute this thing. That was kind of weird. All right. What is up, everybody? I am Erik, and this is Erik Bets Fights. I'm back, y'all. I don't imagine too many people missed me, but I did take last week off entirely. Not only from doing content, but also from doing tape and everything. Like I had a big work project I needed to finish up, and I finished it up. It's done. It was something that my department had been working on for almost a year. What I do for a living, I write trivia questions, and we had to write 100,000, yes, 100,000 trivia questions for this trivia app, and they were in like specific categories. It was all broken down. They needed X number of questions about this and that and whatever. And over the course of like the last 9 months or so, we wrote those 100,000 trivia questions, and we're finally done. But anyway, that's why I took a week off. It feels good to be back, but I definitely feel a little rusty. I came into StreamYard here and I was clicking around like, man, can I even remember how all this stuff works? But I think I got it figured out. But it is UFC 278 fight week, y'all. Should be a fun card headlined by the rematch between KAMARU Usman and Leon Edwards. Some other fun fights on the card as well. We get to see Luke Rockhold come back, see how he looks these days in there against Paulo Costa. Also the return of the GOAT, Harry Hunsucker. And his first time coming down to 205, so that should be interesting to see. He's going in there against Tyson Pedro. But yeah, fun. It should be a lot of fun. But anyway, we're not going to get too much into that right now. This show is Mixed Martial Smarts. This is the show where I ask you a few trivia questions about the fighters that will be appearing on this weekend's card. So one thing that you can do that's not a bad idea for this show is, go to Tapology or whatever and pull up the card. Because in a way, the questions are kind of multiple choice, because if the answer to a question is the name of a fighter, it's going to be a fighter that's on the card. So you can just kind of pull it up and be like, oh, it's going to be one of these. Daz Files says, Luke going to sleep, I hope. Let's go. Yeah, I'm hoping so too. I've got, how much do I have? I put one unit on Costa's money line, and then his money line got better, and I put another unit on it, and then I also put a little bit on him to win inside the distance, I think. So, yeah, I've got maybe 2.5 units, 2.3 units, something like that on Costa. So hopefully he comes through. But anyway, we don't want to get too much into the betting talk right now. We're going to go ahead. Well, you know what? There's only Daz. It looks like you're the only one here. This show's a lot more fun if there's like a few people in here to play. But we're just going to go ahead and jump into it anyway, because I don't have anything else to vamp about right now to waste time. So if you haven't yet done so, please make sure to like this video and subscribe to Erik Bets Fights and to Never Hedge Media. Obviously, I'm streaming live on the Erik Bets Fights channel right now, but I also do content for Never Hedge Media, so I will be posting this video over on the Never Hedge channel as well. So whichever one you're seeing it on, go ahead and give a like and a subscribe, and go ahead and jump over to the other one and give it a like and subscribe there too if you want. That helps out a lot too. For those of you in the chat, go ahead and as I go through the questions, go ahead and drop your guesses in the chat. If you're watching after the fact, drop your guesses in the comments. Or if you don't feel like that, it's always nice to get some comments going because it helps the algorithm. So if you don't feel like throwing guesses in the comments, here's what I want to know, or here's what I want you to drop in the comments. Who is like your lock of the card for UFC 278? Who do you think is like the lock who is for sure going to win at UFC 278 this weekend? Go ahead and drop that in the comments. But we're going to go ahead and jump right into the questions. Daz says he tweeted it out. Maybe a couple other folks will jump in. Looks like we got 3 people in here now, so we'll go ahead and jump into the questions. All right, let's see if I set this up right. I swear after a week, about a week and a half, 2 weeks of not doing content, I couldn't remember what the heck I was doing. All right, question number 1. Which UFC 278 fighter competed briefly as a sumo wrestler, even winning silver at the Open European Cup in 2016? Again, which fighter competing at UFC 278 competed briefly as a sumo wrestler, even winning silver at the Open European Cup in 2016? Looks like we got Daz and one other person hanging out in here. I'll give you a second to see if anybody can come up with an answer there. And if we're looking for somebody competing at sumo, you can probably assume it's not a flyweight, probably not a bantamweight, right? Probably not a featherweight. Probably also not a lightweight or a welterweight or a middleweight. And Daz comes through with Romanov. That is exactly right. Yes, of course. Alexander Romanov. He competed. He didn't do it for very long. I think if I remember correctly from what I read, he did sumo for I think like less than a year. But yeah, he did give it a try and apparently was pretty good at it, which doesn't surprise me. Moving on to question number 2. UFC middleweight contender Paulo Costa is known as Boachinia. What does he use as the English translation of this nickname? I worded that kind of weirdly as far as what does he use as the English translation, because this is a word that can kind of be translated in a few different ways. He translates it in a very specific way when he uses the English version. So again, UFC middleweight contender Paulo Costa, he's known as Boachinia. What does he use as the English translation of this nickname? And I will say that before I learned this, I assumed that Boachinia meant like little drunkard or something, because bohacho or whatever means drunk in Spanish, or it's something close to that anyway. I don't speak Spanish really, but I took Spanish for a few years in high school and stuff. But yeah, that word is close to the Spanish word for drunk, so I kind of thought that that's what it meant, but that turns out that that's not what it means. I don't see any guesses coming through on that one, so I'm going to let you know. The translation that Paulo Costa uses for Boachinia is the eraser. And let me break that down for you a little bit. Paulo Costa's brother, hopefully I've got the details right here. Paulo Costa's older brother had the nickname Bohacha, which means rubber, because he was really flexible. He was also a fighter, or maybe a jiu-jitsu competitor. I'm not sure exactly, but he was a combat sports athlete of some sort. And his nickname was Bohacha, or rubber, because he was really flexible. And since Paulo Costa was his younger brother, the "in" in there, the Bohachinia, that's the diminutive of Bohacha, so it means little. So it meant little rubber. And so Bohacha or Bohachinia, it means rubber, but that's also used for like erasers, like the eraser on the back of a pencil, or like the pink erasers that you would use when you were a kid. So, since it would be kind of weird for him to use the translation, yeah, my nickname means little rubber, he went with the eraser, because like he erases opponents. So that was like the coolest sounding way for him to translate that into English. So yeah, Bohachinia, it technically translates it translates to little rubber, but he goes with the eraser. All right, moving on to question number 3. Luke Rockhold found himself in the tabloids in 2016 when he briefly dated what Grammy Award nominated singer and actor? Again, Luke Rockhold found himself in the tabloids in 2016 when he briefly dated what Grammy Award nominated singer and actor? I do remember seeing things about this various places. I also remember seeing them, if I remember correctly, sitting in the they were sitting in the crowd at least one UFC event together. He was dating a very famous person, a Grammy Award nominated singer and actor. Do you recall who that was? Daz Files puts out a guess of J-Lo. It was not J-Lo. So yeah, back in 2016, Luke Rockhold, I think it was only for like a few months, but Luke Rockhold was dating Demi Lovato. Yeah, Demi Lovato. I know I should really make slides that have the answers on them, so I'm like pulling up the answer visually as well. I just haven't done that yet. I guess I'm lazy, so I'm just telling you. But yeah, Luke Rockhold dated Demi Lovato. All right, that was question 3. Only 2 questions left. This is maybe my favorite question of the night. Tyson Pedro and Harry Hunsucker have 23 pro MMA fights between them. How many of those 23 fights have gone past the first round? So again, we're looking at their pro fights only here. If you combine their pro records, Tyson Pedro and Harry Hunsucker have 23 pro mixed martial arts bouts. How many of those 23 fights have gone past the first round? Our first guess comes through from DFS by the numbers. Brady, he says 2. I'm guessing it wasn't a guess. I'm guessing he knew because he's probably looked at their records too. Yes, the answer is 2. They between the two of them, they've only gone out of the first round twice. Both of those fights were Tyson Pedro's fights, actually. Harry Hunsucker has never gone out of the first round in his professional career. He has gone out of the first round once in an amateur fight, and then he's got a bunch of those amateur fights that don't really give the details. And or at least not on Tapology. Sometimes if you look at SureDog, it'll have details that Tapology doesn't have. I didn't look at SureDog for the amateur fights here, so I'm not sure. But yeah, Tyson Pedro has gone to the second round once and the third round once, if I remember correct. Or no, he went all the way to decision once and went to the third round once, I think. He went to decision against Alir Latifi and then to the third round with Shogun. And Harry Hunsucker, he either gets the knockout or knocks himself out or gets knocked out, knocks himself out. Well, yeah, why not, right? In the first round. Paul Harris popped in and said, "Sup, Kevin? I got to tell you something, Paul Harris." Paul Harris always points out that I look like this wrestler, Kevin Owens. I had something come up on my Facebook memories a few days ago from years ago, probably from 6, 7, 8 years ago or something. And one of my Facebook friends had posted, "Are Erik and Kevin Owens the same person?" so yeah, that's something that's been pointed out to me for quite a while already. Kevin Owens. I don't watch wrestling. I don't know much about wrestling, but from what I understand, Kevin Owens is pretty cool. People like him, so I guess I don't mind being compared to him if he's all right, you know. All right, moving on to question number 5. This will be our final question of the game. Which UFC 278 fighter is currently working on a PhD in industrial psychology at Old Dominion University in Norfolk, Virginia? I love it when you hear about fighters who are intelligent, who are learned, who are out there pursuing higher education, because people who don't follow the sport, it's getting a little better all the time. It's a whole lot better than it was in the 90s and then in the earlier 2000s, of people thinking that everyone who competes in this sport has to be some sort of barbarian. It's getting better all the time, but it's nice when we've got things like this that we can point to. And DFS by the numbers, Brady once again throws out Maverick. That is right. It is Miranda Maverick. Paul Harris says Kevin Owens is awesome. That's what I've heard. Yeah, I don't watch wrestling myself, but I have some friends who are big wrestling fans, and I've definitely heard them talk about him, and they think he's pretty cool, so I can dig that. Yeah, that's all I got for you, folks. You know what? I actually did write a couple other questions. I didn't make slides for them, but I've got them on the screen here. I'm going to throw them out there for you. Why not, right? Jose Aldo is known as Scarface because of a prominent scar on his cheek. How did he receive this scar? Dasmile says, "My sexism cost me. Looked at males only." Yeah. Once again, Jose Aldo is known as Scarface because of a prominent scar on his cheek. How did he receive this scar? This feels like one of those things, like I love MMA and I love trivia, so this feels like one of those things that I should have known, but I actually just learned this week while I was doing the research for these questions. Do you know how Jose Aldo got the scar on his face? I don't see any guesses coming in. Now, I wasn't able to find anything that really got into the details of the story, so I don't know if I've got, how correct I am on this, but allegedly when he was a baby, he was dropped onto a barbecue grill. So, yeah, that's a crazy. Dasfiles guessed a car accident or childhood accident with glass. Yeah, I mean, it was similar to that, but yeah, if I've got the details right, he was dropped on a barbecue grill when he was a baby. I want to see if I can find more details about that, because that's a pretty wild story. But yeah. And let's see. This is my last one. I did write another Luke Rockhold question. I'll throw this one out for you too. After winning 9 straight fights in Strikeforce, Luke Rockhold made his UFC debut in 2013, where he was knocked out in the first round by a spinning heel kick delivered by what former UFC champion? Somebody's definitely going to know this one. Again, after winning 9 straight fights in Strikeforce, Luke Rockhold made his UFC debut in 2013, where he was knocked out in the first round by a spinning kick delivered by what former UFC champion? One of my favorite fighters of all time. One of the guys that first got me interested in this sport, or one of the guys that I first was like, he was one of my favorite fighters. I remember him making his UFC debut in 1997, and he absolutely blew my mind. And so he was a guy whose career I always followed after that. It was Vitor Belfort. Good old Vitor. Yeah, Vitor's career was something else. He definitely stuck around a little longer than he should have. A lot of those old time kind of classic legend fighters did that, but when he was at his best, Vitor was pretty freaking awesome to watch. That's all I've got for you this week, folks. Thanks to the 4 of you hanging out. I appreciate you all showing up. Daz Files, DFS by the numbers, Paul Harris. Somebody else is here. I don't know who it is, but thank you so much for watching, you guys. I am Erik. Oh, excuse me. Make sure to like the video, subscribe, throw a comment down there to help us out the algorithm. I am Erik with Erik Bets Fights. Thanks for stopping by. I hope you enjoy the fights this weekend at UFC 278. Take care, everybody, and have a good night.